Hello and welcome to Authors Talk. Today we have with us Prajwal Parajuly. He is perhaps the youngest Indian author to have ever won an international book contract. The Hindustan Times calls his book the best short story collection you've read in a while. The Gurkhas Daughter is a collection of stories that describe the experiences of the Nepali people. So, Prajwal, does this book make you the most eligible Indian bachelor?
Wait, is that your first question? Wow. Wow, this is going to be a very interesting interview. The most eligible bachelor. Next question. Let's move on to the next.
So, you've chosen to debut with a short story book.
Mm-hmm.
That's difficult. That's difficult usually from the perspective of getting a publisher. So, you've both managed to get a publisher, and that's also been the firm that you've chosen to work with. Or did the firm choose you?
I was extremely naive about the way the publishing world worked.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that the short story was the stepdaughter of the publishing world. I didn't know that no one picked up short story collections from debut authors in the West, etc., etc. I'm glad for that naivety because had I known just how difficult the world there was, I probably would not have attempted the book at all. Yes, I chose to debut with the short story collection despite my having completed both the novel and the short story collection, simply because I thought it would be a nice thing to do. I mean, I started writing with short stories. And a lot of people in the industry criticized us for not publishing the novel first. A lot of my friends told me, look, you have a novel and a collection of short stories. Why don't you publish the novel first? You already have that. I see no point following these rules, to be honest with you. If the short story collection wouldn't have done well, it wouldn't have done well. I'm glad it's done well. And I feel a certain devotion to the short story form. I do. Most of us in India grow up listening to short stories. Most of us in India are told these amazing short stories by our grandparents. And I think a lot of my knowledge of the vernacular of Nepali literature stems from short stories narrated to me by my granddad, to whom I dedicate this book. So, could I have chosen to make a debut with my novel? Yes, I could have, but I didn't want to. It simply whittles down to all these strange idiosyncrasies that you have regarding forms and whatever devotion you have to them.
You've also done a course in creative writing, a master's in creative writing at Oxford.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did you feel that was something that you wanted to do as a writer?
Well, I did the course because I sort of had nothing to do. I had written about 4 to 5 short stories. These stories were in their first draft. And this was around November or December of 2009, and my sister in London informed me that Oxford offers a master's in creative writing. I thought I would apply to it. That would give me at least another 2 years of writing, maybe. 2 years of school, which would also placate my parents here, because they had been talking to me about about potentially pursuing a master's. Well, I don't know how happy they were when I told them that it would be a master's in creative writing, but the decision to go to Oxford primarily stemmed from not having very much to do. I'd quit my job. I thought I had a book in the 5 very, very rough stories that I had, and it seemed like a pretty natural step to go to a creative writing program after that. Yeah.
Now you're midway through your course and you get your first book deal. How did that happen? How did you meet your publisher? How did that happen?
Wow, this is a story that I don't really tire of telling because of the wonder it evokes in people. Once I got called for an Oxford interview, I started Googling and wikiing authors and books like there was no tomorrow. I had not been an English major in college. I'd taken just one creative writing class then. So there was this lacuna in my knowledge of the great writers of the English language. While doing the wikiing and Googling, I chanced upon an ad for the London Book Fair. I clicked on it and saw that Hilary Mantel, who had just won the Booker, was going to be speaking there. Now, I thought that would be a very pretentious, a very Oxford-like thing to do, to go listen to Hilary Mantel speak, and I thought it would be a really cool idea to go to Oxford for the interview and drop Hilary Mantel's name there. I thought the interviewers would think I was extremely serious about literature and was extremely serious about Oxford. I registered for the London Book Fair. The day of the fair, I picked up one of my own stories to read on the train because there is a dearth of good reading material at my sister's place. It so happened that the fair was a poorly attended event that year because the volcanic ashes had created a havoc in air travel all over Europe. A lot of stores that should have been bustling with activity were empty. I sat next to a slightly disgruntled woman, asked her what was wrong, and she said all her meetings had been cancelled on account of the volcanic ashes. We got talking, she introduced herself to me, and she was Susan Yearwood, a literary agent. I asked her if she would read my story. She didn't look very happy to take the story, but she did take it. Got an email from her a couple of weeks later asking me to send the rest of the stories, which I did, and she signed me on. She wanted to represent me. After I went to Oxford, I wrote 3 more stories. I finished the stories I already had and recirculated the manuscript among Susan's contacts in London. And we chose Quercus because I had a great rapport with John Riley, the editor of Quercus, and I really liked his devotion to the short story form. So it's been I got the book deal in a slightly weird way. I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't met Susan because having to email agents on a day-by-day basis and waiting to hear back from them might have just taken the life out of me. I'm grateful for whatever happened.
So, what would you say as a young Indian writer to other young Indian writers who are starting out?
Start writing.
Okay.
Start writing. If you think you have a story to tell, sit down and write. Don't wait another day. Don't wait for weeks. Don't wait for years. These days, a lot of us think we are writers because of the boost to our self-esteem we receive because of our Facebook posts and our notes on Facebook and blogs, etc., which is all right, but you have to sit down and start writing. And you get that elusive first book out of the way, and don't think about things like agents, publishers, and imprints right now. Just start writing is what I'll say.
So, where did you begin writing this book?
Oh wow! I actually, wow, yeah, good memories there. I started writing this book at a guest house, in Manali called the Raj Guest House. No frills guest house. It cost me 200 rupees a night. Didn't have any hot water. Manali was infested with Israeli tourists, people who had just come to India to let loose after however many years of mandatory training they have to undergo. And I chose Manali because I didn't want to go back to Gangtok and write the book there, as everyone would ask me what I was doing with my life. Manali, I figured, would be similar to Gangtok in a lot of ways. So I wrote the first story, which is the second story in the book, Let Sleeping Dogs Lie. The guest house didn't even have any hot water, so I don't think it had a shower. I had to use the traditional Indian style of using a mug and a bucket to take a bath, and that wasn't fun, especially because the water was cold. 10 or so days in Manali, and I thought to myself, okay, this town, as beautiful as it is, looks like my hometown's poorer cousin, and at least I get warm water at home. So I moved back into my parents' house and wrote a very large chunk of the book there.
So, are there any favorite stories in the book?
Favorite stories? I can talk about stories I don't like at all.
Sure.
The one story I dislike is The Immigrants. I do not understand why it has been singled out in all the reviews. People have talked about how amazing it is, how nice it is. To me, it reads like I don't know, the story is so like a B-grade Bollywood movie. My favorite story in the book is Passing Fancy. It's based in Darjeeling. Other stories I like, I quite like the eponymous story. I like the Gurkhas Daughter too. But I don't dislike any story as much as I do The Immigrants. Yeah.
And are there any autobiographical elements?
No, nothing at all.
Okay.
It's very interesting. The Immigrants has a character who lives in New York City, and so many people have asked me if that story is mine. It isn't. It just isn't my story. And no, there is nothing autobiographical. I'm a boring guy. I lead a very, very boring life. Wouldn't translate very well into a story or a novel at all. Yeah.
After all this adulation, has there been any announcement of 1 crore rupees from the Chief Minister of Sikkim or something like that?
Wow, you're full of interesting questions. No, there hasn't been anything, and I'm okay with there not being one. But that was a fun question.
So thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me here. It was an absolute pleasure. I had a great time. Thank you.
And good luck.
Oh, thank you very much. Good luck to you too. Thanks.